Never before has humanity known suffering like going for weeks without Kings of War battle reports. Juicy red-hot content that people grew to love. They've been deprived of that for far too long. And in the meantime, all they've had to live on are the filthy table scraps of universal battle and pixelated miniatures, which is just not acceptable as far as I'm concerned. So, as the owner of several armies, I've taken it upon myself to use the miracle of modern technology and provide good old-fashioned battle reports with miniatures. Abyssal Dwarves versus Undead, and to guide you through this journey back into the promised land, we have me in the corner with very large looking hair tonight, and we also have Mr. Arrow, who is going to guide your eyeballs around the screen to points of interest. So I can see a few people watching this live already, trembling with anticipation, I'm sure, that we're finally back in the saddle of battle reports. So this game was played with a webcam pointing directly down onto the table, and my opponent was directing his forces via the internet. Which there are a couple of issues with that, but not major ones. You lose a little bit of tactical subtlety, because obviously if you're not physically there, you can't reach out onto the table and start measuring and checking angles without tipping off your opponent, which you can do in a normal game if you want to be sneaky with something and you don't want to ask how far away something is, you just want to measure it yourself so you can get the jump on somebody. Obviously that's difficult over the internet. But that being said, here we go. 1,500 points, Undead, Abyssal Dwarves. I've got both lists right here, and this is the control scenario. So we decided that it would have to be a scenario to test out this revolutionary battle technique. It would have to be a scenario that didn't require tokens all over the place that might be difficult to see for my opponent. So we just started off with a nice, simple one. Control. So this is the angle most of the pictures will be coming from, but because this side is a bit shadowy, I also took some lovely cinematic shots from the other side where there's a bit more light. So you can look at those while I go through the forces. So, I mean, look at that. That's just red hot, still image content there. Look at it sizzling away. So the Abyssal Dwarf list, since we're looking down the Abyssal Dwarf ranks here, we have 2 regiments of Black Souls, one of which has a throwing mastiff. I will be controlling the Abyssal Dwarves, by the way. We have a troop of Gargoyles. We have a troop of Decimators. We have a horde of Lesser Obsidian Golems. We have a horde of Grotesques with the Staying Stone, boosting their nerve to 17-18. We have the Hellfane, and the Hellfane also has the optional Overmaster upgrade. So infantry nearby have Wild Charge, in addition to the other aura that's granted to nearby dwarves, giving them Brutal, which is nice. There's an Abyssal Half-Breed Champion, and there's an Abyssal Grotesque Champion. So, all the new stuff that I've painted is in here, all the Grotesques and the Hellfanes, so there's not really much tactical thought gone into this list. It was, let's pick all that stuff first, and then what else can I physically put in there to try and make some kind of half-decent army at 1,500 points. And on the Undead side, look at this. Beautiful pictures. So that's actually one unit there, because I hear word on the street, on the grapevine, tells me that Revenant Cavalry Hordes are the ultimate filth right now. So, got to make a list with a couple of those in. So this list was also kind of thrown together at this unusual point level. And there's 2 hordes of those Revenant Cavalry. One of them has Sir Jesse's Boots of Striding as well, and that will actually be this unit here. So just 2 cavalry regiments plopped together, turning them into a couple of hordes. What else have we got on the Undead side? Well, there's some zombies. So we've got 2 hordes of zombies. We've got a troop of ghouls, a horde of werewolves with the Blade of Slashing, a vampire on Undead Pegasus with the Mace of Crushing, and 2 necromancers, one with Banechant and Surge, one with Drain Life and Surge. So, the Drain Life combo is supposed to be pretty interesting with the Revenant Cavalry Hordes, because they're very difficult to crack in one go. So the Necromancer with Banechant is down here, and the one with Drain Life I think is over there, out of shot at the moment. So there's not much inspiring on the table at all, actually. When these lists were being made, that was something that was definitely sacrificed. So the Undead have only got the Vampire who can fly around and provide some inspiring. The Abyssal Dwarves only have the half-breed champion who can only inspire abominations, so he can only inspire the grotesques, and the Hellfane, which can inspire things, obviously, which is probably a bit more reliable source of inspiring because it's likely to stick around with the infantry units. So let's work our way across the table here. So this is the right flank of the Undead as we look at it from this angle, but most of the shots for this game will be from the other side. Werewolves there in front of one of the Revenant cavalry hordes. This isn't the one that's upgraded. Next we've got a couple of zombie hordes there, one slightly further than the other, and the Banechant Necromancer there. Over here we've got the other Revenant cavalry horde, along with the Drain Life Necromancer. Then there's the ghouls, and they are in front of the Vampire on Pegasus. On the Abyssal Dwarf side, and it's looking very, very golden over here. So we've got, there's the Black Souls, the Decimators, the Hellfane, more Black Souls. One with the Throwing Mastiff has got an orange dice perched at the back of its base to keep track of which one has the Mastiff, so it's this one here. Gargoyles behind there. There's the half-breed champion. The Grotesques see their first bit of action as well. And the Lesser Obsidian Golems. Hellfane is a very nice model. I weren't keeping track of my painting log, shall we call it, my lockdown hobby time videos, then you will have seen the finished pictures on Facebook. And over on this flank, all the way on his own, we've got the Grotesque champion. So, let's go back a little bit and look at my overall strategy. Obviously, I'm playing as the Abyssal Dwarves here, and it's control. So, in control, really, you don't want to be too far out on the flank unless it's a unit you don't care about and you're just trying to draw the enemy out. Something like Gargoyles becomes quite valuable just in a corner. In this scenario, it can actually score you an entire victory point just from being out there on its own. So the enemy might actually want to send something after it, and if they don't have anything as cheap as Gargoyles, then they're going to be using points when you can just fly away potentially as well. If they don't have any shooting, and this army that I'm up against here only has Drain Life really, the army, and they have to get close to do that. So really I like to focus somewhat in the middle like this, but not dead in the centre with everything. If you're on this kind of line here, then it means you can hop to any of these 4 squares later on in the game. If you try and hang around this area, it's easy to reposition into any of these 4 areas, and the same for this point here. So these are the critical junction spots, I would say, right there and right there. And my opponent has gone for a kind of spread approach with 3 distinct blobs. So we'll see how that works out for both of us. And on to turn 1. And I think I won the roll-off, but elected to let my opponent go first. With this being control, I would quite like the opportunity of going last so I can dive on those juicy table sections that are unguarded at the end and decide where I want to best allocate my resources. And I'm not against shooting, so we're both kind of mainly close combat armies, so I don't mind if I end up getting close to my opponent. This is a big piece of impassable terrain here, by the way, including that. You can't see through there. Good evening, everyone in the chat. We've got Monley, we've got Steve, we've got Jonathan, Graham. Packed house, certainly. 10 people in there at the moment. Not bad. This is obviously the kind of content that people have been thirsting for since the lockdown began. So you could see over there, there's a bit of movement forward, but nothing wants to get into charge range of my units yet. So the Vampire and Pegasus is staying out of charge range of the Grotesque champion. Probably a good idea. Even though it would be probably a fight that would go in the favour of the Vampire on Pegasus. Most likely, you don't really want to get bogged down fighting that thing. Get grounded when you could be using this guy for advanced manoeuvre. Over here, werewolves are on the hill, which is going to give them some juicy thunderous charge. And the knights have just moved up as far as they can behind. The necromancer's chilling out somewhere down here, and the zombies not in too much of a rush to get forward. And that's going to be that for the entire turn. There's no surging done at all. And turn 1 for the Abyssal Dwarves. So, the Black Souls and the Hellfane have advanced into charge range of the werewolves. Not into charge range of the knights, just the werewolves. And both of them are positioned so that if there is a charge made, it'll be across difficult terrain. So they'll be hindered, whilst they'll lose their thunderous charge, which they're currently gaining from being sat on the hill. So if they want to charge into the defense 6 Hellfane in the front, dash 18, with a hindered charge, that would be probably a really bad idea. And if he wants to charge into these Black Souls with a hindered charge, who aren't that much of a pushover themselves, and they're also inspired by the Hellfane, then feel free, because if the werewolves fail to kill the Black Souls, which I think on average they probably would fail, the inspiring here, then they're going to leave themselves open to a flank from the Hellfane, and if they do somehow kill them and then overrun beyond, then there's the Decimators there who could do a little bit of pain to them as well, while everyone else is turning around to deal with that menace. But I don't anticipate this being punched through just yet. Jonathan is loving the beard. Well, it's lockdown. How can you not grow a beard? Over on this side, the golems have moved up. They've put themselves in charge range of the Horde of Knights, quite willingly. And the Horde of Knights they're facing do have the Boots of Striding, but by forcing them to make a hindered charge, it means they're actually going to have to use those Boots of Striding immediately. And you may think, well, does it really matter if they use them? Well, it might do. If they get to fight something again in the future, then they might like to avoid being hindered. So I want them to use it immediately. Grotesque's staying out of range. The half-breed champion is staying out of range as well on the hill, so he can't be charged by anything. Gargoyles is just positioned here, in case the Pegasus wants to come and land down here somewhere. Then the Gargoyles can maybe charge it and ground it for a turn. If not, then they can just be a bit of a menace, threatening down here, and just fly off and grab a table section at the end. Grotesque Champion is hiding from the Pegasus, so it can't be seen there, but it's actually in charge range of these knights, but I don't think they can physically fit in there, because this unit's here, and this piece of terrain is there. I'm not sure whether their base would actually fit in there. I don't think it would. So their option is really back off, stay there, or charge the golems, I believe. And really it's just over to the Undead, do they want to throw units in? Because if they charge into the golems, if they don't kill them, then they're going to get flanked by the Grotesque Champion, they're going to get charged by the Grotesques. I've got the half-breed champion there as well who could join in, and that would be 4 really hard-hitting things there that could potentially take that out in one go. If they do kill the golems, then which way do they face? They face the Grotesques that are right there, because that still leaves them open to either a flank or a rear charge from the Grotesque Champion here. And if they turn to face him for some ungodly reason, then they'd be rear charged by the Grotesques there. So I don't think going for this charge, while it might be good to maybe get rid of a unit, it doesn't leave themselves in the best position, and I'm quite happy to trade my golems for more expensive Knight Horde. How much is that Horde of Knights? Let's see. So that unit is 295 points, compared to 215 for the golems, so I would happily accept that trade. Especially if it's done early, because then I don't have to worry about this flying monstrosity landing near me and causing me to have to spin round later. So if I could get things killed before I'm outmaneuvered, that would be very nice. Monley says, is the Hellfane hard to assemble? Also, is it really heavy? It is quite heavy. It's a big, fat, giant chunk of resin that could kill a man with one blow, I would say. And assembly is not that difficult, although there is one notable area where there's a gap on kind of the front fence panel that attaches to the weird kind of skull helmet that it's got, which I ended up green stuffing over rather than leaving it as a gap. But I think there is a way you can assemble it to avoid the gap. It's just a bit fiddly, that one part. Everything else was fine. Okay, so what are the Undead going to do? I want a couple of charges, because, like I said, I want to fight before I'm outmaneuvered by the Pegasus. And I think they're not so much ridiculous traps, but they're not favourable to the Undead, I think, if they throw themselves in. Hellfane is going to do some shooting now as well, because it does have that nice pistol attack, and puts a wound onto the werewolves, which doesn't really bother them because they're going to life leech it back the first time they attack anything. But it's nice, and you never know, you could get lucky and waver them with ranged attack. Turn 2 for the Undead. So the werewolves decide they're going to charge into the Black Souls and take their chances. And my opponent did kind of agonise over this choice because, of course, they are going to be hindered by the difficult terrain here. So deciding whether to make a hindered charge with the werewolves, they'd be hitting and wounding on 4s, so I wouldn't expect them to do enough damage to get rid of this unit. So it was a tough decision, but my opponent decided to go for it. He was originally considering pushing the knights ahead of the werewolves, actually, leaving the werewolves behind and not going for a charge. And maybe that would have been a better choice, because the knights, I don't think the knights would have been too bothered about taking a charge from the Hellfane and the regiment of Black Souls. That wouldn't be enough to kill them. Definitely not. And the werewolves would have kept alive. If he thinks he can push through this unit and just wants to take the chance, then so be it. Over on this side, a bit of zombie rearrangement, nothing too sinister going on there. And the knights over here do decide to use their boots of striding, and they charge straight into the front of the lesser obsidian golems. They could well kill that unit. There's no inspiring for them to die. But like I said, there's not really a perfect thing for them to do after killing it. They're still leaving flanks open to something. But with nerve of -24, are they that scared about being flanked by a grotesque champion? Maybe not. Also got gargoyles that could potentially help out with the charge, just to do another 2 wounds if needed. Down here, the Pegasus vampire is staying out of charge range of the gargoyles because he doesn't want to get bogged down. Ghouls have moved well. This necromancer is actually hiding behind there. And it's got drain life and surge, so there's not much for it to actually do at the moment. You can't get within range to drain anyone's life at this stage. So the werewolves, look how much damage they do. 1. Would have been expecting a couple more than that at least, but only 1 damage to the Black Souls. Now they are going to get flanked by the Hellfane, and good luck with that. And here, so the Night Horde do decent damage to the Obsidian Golems. Look at that, 10 damage, but only a 6 when 7 was required on the dice. So they are alive, which means that these knights are just in trouble. Flank, front, and this guy can help as well. So there's just a zillion attacks going to be coming. And this is a countercharge, so they won't even be hindered. And the grotesques don't have to become either, because of the precise way these units are lined up. So it's not looking great for the undead after those disappointing results. This unit, I would expected possibly to die with that much damage on them, but the Black Souls, even though they should have taken more damage, I think they should have hung on regardless, so that's fine. Turn 2, so of course Hellfane in the flank, Black Souls back in the front, equals dead werewolves. Grotesque champion in the flank, golems and grotesques in the front, and half-breed champion in the flank, equals dead Night Horde. So at this stage, you're thinking, what can the undead possibly do from here? Just lost 2 of their most expensive units, and it's not looking. But these golems are a bit vulnerable. Next time they take a hit, I would expect them to die. You'll notice there's no Ironcaster at all in this list, so I've got no way of healing or surging this unit, which is why there's only 1 horde of them. I think you can, if you're not taking anything to surge them with, you can justify having 1 unit. Taking 2, then I think you really want to be looking for some surge after that. And these 2 have turned to face the Vampire Pegasus. If he wants to charge this guy in the front, I'd be confident that he might not actually kill him. And if he wants to charge into these guys, probably kill them, then he's likely to be charged by grotesques, which may be hindered, but I would fancy their chances against the Vampire Pegasus in a war of attrition. Regeneration versus life. And the grotesques have just got high. And a lot more attacks. So what's going to happen next? These knights are presumably going to attack something. You go for the undamaged defense 6 Hellfane into the difficult terrain, or would you go for the Black Souls in a difficult terrain? Let me know. Turn 3 for the undead. So the knights decide they're going to charge into the Hellfane, and I'm not sure about this because I think they're very, very unlikely to kill that, even with, let's see how many attacks those knights have. 32 attacks. They'll be hitting on 5s going through there. And they can be Bane chanted, of course, which would be added to the 1 thunderous charge that they would retain. So they'd be wounding on 4s, hitting on 5s, wounding on 4s with 32 attacks. But it's -18, the Hellfane. So, and it inspires itself. So are you really going to kill it in 1 round? It's very dodgy. I think maybe going for these guys. They're already on 1 wound. Much better chance of killing them. They have lower defense. can still Bane chant them, and then you could turn to face the Hellfane, maybe, which doesn't have that many attacks, so it's unlikely to kill them in one round. So I think I may have gone for the Regiment, who also have higher unit strength, if we're thinking about the scenario here as well. So the Knights have charged into the Hellfane, and it's handy actually having multiple models on the base, because the Hellfane's nose goes halfway into enemy bases, and that's just the way it is. So models that can slide backwards to make room for its enormous nose, very generous. Zombies moving up, not really into the action yet. Necromancer moving into Bane chant range. Vampire Pegasus charges into the Golems, which is probably the right call there. It should be able to finish them off, which is going to be important for unit strength purposes. The Ghouls are avoiding any action at all. They're just chilling down here. I think they actually go backwards up there, because thinking with the scenario head here, after losing those two big expensive units, you need to scrape for all the points you can get now. So they're just hiding. The Necromancer moves out into range of the Gargoyles, who sloppily left themselves just within drain life range of him. So he's going to have a chance to attack them now. So the Necromancer with Bane chant banes up the Night Horde against the Hellfane. And the Gargoyles, they take one wound from drain life, but because they're Gargoyles and they have terrible nerve, they are immediately dead. So good job for the Necromancer there with his drain life. Didn't have anyone to drain the life onto. And the Vampire Pegasus kills off the Golems, so that's leveled it up a bit in terms of number of units dead. And then he actually moves sideways after the combat, which means that the Half-Breed Champion can't see him anymore, so I can't declare a double charge. And here, 2 damage onto the Hellfane. Okay, I would have expected to do a lot more than that. What's the dead average amount that they should have been doing? So they've got, I said 32 attacks, didn't I? Hitting on 5s, wounding on 4s. You'd expect them to do more than 2. Definitely more than that. I would have expected him to live, but suffer more than 2 wounds. So a bit of a disappointing roll there. With the Bane chant as well, you'd expect more than that. And that is that. So it didn't go too badly here, but this is going to be a big problem for the Night Horde. Get charged in the front by the Hellfane. Front probably from this unit, and then the flank is open to any of these units, because the Knights obviously are taller than all the Dwarves around here. It'll be hindered charges because there's terrain here, but still, in the flank that's going to be a lot of attacks. Jonathan says, Rev Cav need a boost. I think people consider them to be the ultimate filth in Kings of War right now, but it was just a terrible roll. You can't account for that. Turn 3. So, the Grotesques charge into Peggy the Vampire, and 3 damage. And if you're going to slowly start a war of attrition against something with Life Leech 2, you really want to be making sure that you do at least 3 damage each time, just so your damage actually means something. He's going to Life Leech back 2 of them this turn. And here I go all in on the Knights, and after learning in the past that when you've got a giant unit like that, with really high nerve, and it hits ridiculously hard as well, you have to throw everything you can, try and get rid of it in one round if you can. So you can see, Hellfane, Black Souls in the front, Half-Breed Champion in the front, Black Souls in the flank, Decimators in the flank. A zillion attacks, 15 damage, with Brutal, but I only rolled 7 when requiring 8. So, yeah, it's an average result there. I think I should have done possibly a teeny bit more damage. These guys were both, so I wasn't expecting them to do that much. So it's probably not far off the average, this result here. But I've got them really at death's door now, so next time I hit them with anything, I'd expect them to die. Grotesque Champion is just running off this way, chasing after the ghouls, who now have nowhere to hide from him. If they go backwards, they're still in charge range, so they may have to charge him and hope for the best. And in the middle, what's going on there? Turn 4 for the Undead forces. So the ghouls charge into the Grotesque Champion. I'd expect him to be fine with that. The Grotesque Champion's nerve is 12-14 with defense 5. So the ghouls, the ghoul troop with their 12 attacks, which isn't bad, but they don't have any kind of crushing. So I wouldn't expect them to kill him. And here, the zombies take on this flank onto the Black Soul Regiment that has the Throwing Mastiff. If we go back, actually, to a previous image, you can see that failing to kill this unit has left that flank exposed there. They also had the option of going for the Half-Breed Champion and trying to get an overrun into the flank. They decide, you know what, we'll just go straight into the flank. And that's what they do. The Knights charge into the Half-Breed Champion, hoping to kill him and overrun to something. And these zombies charge past the Knights into the other Black Soul Regiment. This one's in the front, so they should be fine. The Necromancer Bane chants the zombies that made the frontal charge there. And look at that, the ghouls do 5 damage there, which is a pretty solid amount, but they cannot waver the grotesque champion. Peggy the Vampire does 2 wounds onto the grotesques and will life leech those in a second. Yep, it's actually got the wrong wound right there, but I think I swapped that out for a brown one in a minute. And in the middle here, you can see that 3 damage is done there to the Half-Breed Champion, the Knights. They may have lost their Thunderous Charge, but I would have expected more than 3 wounds to be done. It's another very disappointing turn from them. And here, the Flank Charge only does 3 wounds as well. Again, probably hope for a bit more than that with a Flank Charge. And this unit actually does nothing, the Bane Chant. No wounds at all. So I think that wound was really on the unit from earlier. So very little accomplished in combat here, and it's just a big, hideous, like, puzzle combats all linked together there. And here, there's the life leech and the new trait. So on this side you can see there's these 2 combats going on. So pretty much everything is in combat now. So it's quite a fast, easy game. Turn 4. The Grotesque Champion kills off the ghouls by doing 4 wounds to them, toasts them alive. And over here, Grotesques do some more damage to the Peggy the Vampire, and they regenerate some of their wounds. Got him up to 4, so just slowly chipping away upwards. So I'll hope to win that, especially because the Grotesque Champion has turned round to face the Pegasus now. So he's actually got a decision to make regarding whether to have one more round of combat, or whether does he just try and run away. Zombie Horde are taking this charge, this counter charge in the front from the Black Souls here, and they've taken 6 wounds. And the Knights take the Hellfane and the Half-Breed Champion in the front, but not that much damage is done. It's a pretty mediocre, very poor roll there, and I don't actually kill the Knights for the second time. And these Black Souls, let's actually go back to show you why they have a flank charge here. Look at that. So the zombies are actually beyond the centre of this unit, so got a nice juicy flank opportunity there. And the Decimators, I think, don't really do anything this turn. Let's just check on that. Flank charge there gets them up to 12 wounds, so it puts them in the danger zone for next time, and the Decimators are just hanging out there waiting, because the Gargoyles are dead, so the Decimators could fill the role of jumping into a table section at the end and get them actually close enough to the sections they want to jump into. And it's looking pretty good still. It was looking a little bit dicey for a moment for the Abyssal Dwarfs, but it's looking quite good now, I think. The previous turn, let's just see. So this side's looking really good. This area, I'm not so sure, because these Knights are still alive after a couple of turns where they could well have died. I think I'm making good progress on the zombie hordes to get rid of them. Knights have only got 1 more fight left in them, probably. But if they could kill the Half-Breed Champion and overrun into the Hellfane, you never know, they could do some serious pain dishing out there. Turn 5 for the Undead. So, Peggy the Vampire decides to have 1 more go at taking out the Grotesques. Zombies counter-charging into the Black Souls that just flanked them. The Knights go back into the Half-Breed Champion, and the other zombies charge back into these Black Souls. So they'll be hoping these Knights can kill him, and then Necromancer banes up the Night Horde, which could be very helpful for them. And Peggy the Vampire actually does a lot more damage this time to the Grotesques, gets them up to 7, not enough to remove them. or even waver them. Staying stone is of course helpful there. Zombie Horde do some more damage onto the Black Souls there, get them up to 4. And these ones put this unit up to 3. So the Night Horde do kill the half-breed champion there. They're going to overrun into Mighty Hellfane. And they actually get that up to 8 damage as well, but can't remove it. So I'd expect them to die next turn, but they did take something down with them and did some serious damage to this unit. So a very blurry picture of that central combat now. It's starting to thin out a bit. Certain units are dying. And over here, it's still looking good because, of course, I've got the double charge here now with the counter charge in the front and the rear charge from the Grotesque Champion, which is going to be absolute death for the Pegasus Vampire. Turn 5 for the Abyssal Dwarves then. So, well, I said absolute death for the Pegasus Vampire. Unless I roll that. So, a zillion wounds, double 1, Pegasus Vampire lives. Wow, wow. So that could put a flying vampire in the ointment. Over here, more damage on that zombie horde. They're way off being dead yet. The other zombie horde are finished off by the Black Souls. The Night Horde are finished off by the Hellfane, and the Decimator's also charged in there just to add a little bit of extra. And the Hellfane's now turned that way to face the zombies. Knights are dead. Jonathan says hashtag real life dice. There's got to be a double 1 in every game, if you ask me. If there's no double 1, is it really a Kings of War? So it's looking very good for the Abyssal Dwarves now. Are these zombies going to chew through everything? Probably not. Turn 6 for the Undead. Can they turn it round? What's the Necromancer going to do? He's going to Bane chant up the zombies, though. So they can hopefully take out these Black Souls. Vampire Pegasus attacking these guys again. But I don't think it's going to be enough. So they do kill the Black Souls, which is nice for them. Then they turn to make sure they're not going to get flanked by anything. And that's how that area is looking. And over here, not that much damage was inflicted there. So Peggy going down next time, unless I double 1 it again. Turn 6 for the Abyssal Dwarves. Possibly my final turn now. And Peggy the Vampire is now toast. And rightly so. Over here, the Hellfane and the Decimators double charge into the zombie horde and finish them off. The Hellfane, it's got a lot of special rules, and having Strider actually makes it useful for these kind of situations. And with the number of attacks it has, only having 9, you think, is that a problem? But then you see, well, actually, it does hit on 3s. So on average, I think that makes it about the same as the Greater Obsidian Golem. It's got less attacks, but it's got a better melee roll. And in terms of Crushing and Thunderous, it's pretty equal there as well. So it's just a lot more expensive than other units. That's the issue with it, but it does have a lot of special rules. It definitely has a place in the army. And the fact that it has those auras, you can build a decent list around it, I think. Especially good with Abyssal Dwarf Berserkers, which of course I don't have because they're pretty old and I'm not sure if they're ever going to redo them. I'll have to ask about that before I buy any. I think they are available, but they've got a lot of metal parts, which are a bit annoying. I could convert some, I suppose. And over here, these Black Souls just wandered off into the corner because it's control scenario and they want to make sure. Jonathan says, Hellfane isn't a must-take, but nice. Yeah, in all my 2,000 point lists I've been looking at, I struggle to fit it in. If I stop taking the Greater Obsidian Golem, then it's more likely that I could fit the Hellfane. It's more expensive, but it also has a bit more utility about it. If you take the Inspiring on it as well. Jonathan says, and yours is gorgeous. I assume he's talking about the Hellfane and my face at the same time. But it is a very nice model, that Hellfane, and I'm very pleased with the way it's come out. So I would definitely try and include it in lists. If nothing else, just because I like taking the models that I think look the nicest, which is why in tournaments, even though I don't think the Ancient Winged Half-Breed is the optimal choice for the models I've got, I still like taking it because I think it looks very cool. So that and the Hellfane are really. So they're likely to see some action regardless of how competitive they are. And really, it's obviously over at this stage, even if there's a turn 7, because these guys are scoring. He's scoring, they're scoring, they're scoring, he's scoring. The Undead don't have any scoring units left. They've just got 2 Necromancers running around. And the Drain Life could kill something if there's a turn 7, but that would be it. So that is that. That's the end of the game. So how many victory points for the Abyssal Dwarves there? I hold this one. I think this guy makes it into the enemy central area. So that's 2, 8, 5, because I think these two are in the same zone. So 5 points to 0. Victory for the Abyssal Dwarves, and we don't need Mr. Arrow anymore. So all the new models survived, which is quite baffling as anyone that's taken fancy new models onto the table, you'll know that they invariably get killed immediately. So for all of them to live is very impressive. I think the Undead list has a couple of issues with it, I think. Maybe a slight lack of inspiring, but overall I think it's a decent idea for a list. 2 hordes of Revenant Cavalry at 1500 points. It's expensive, but they do hit very hard. It's just everything was kind of thrown into a fight pretty much on its own in this particular battle. So I think had they been used to support each other a bit, those cavalry hordes, that might have been interesting. Werewolves kind of threw their lives away as well. The Pegasus Vampire was a threat, but it didn't really get to make the most of it because it ended up getting bogged down a bit after it finished off the golems, obviously. 2 Necromancers, I think one of them could probably do with the Inspiring Talisman, but there just weren't points left over. There weren't a lot of upgrades in this list, really. There was the Boots of Striding and then a couple of 5-point items. So the Abyssal Dwarf list, 1500 points. I don't think I've ever seen a tournament at 1500 points, but I thought that was a decent level for a webcam game of Kings of War, rather than 2000 where it's potential to just get too many drops on the table and it's going to be really complicated to arrange everything and get all the angles correct and describe exactly what you want. However, it's a bit easier because I found Google Hangouts used to allow you to draw on the screen, but they don't do that anymore. They removed that feature for some ungodly reason. The only program I found that allows you to now draw onto the screen for someone else to see is Zoom. However, Zoom doesn't let you draw onto the other person's camera feed directly. You can't draw onto their feed. What you can draw onto is if they screen share their own camera feed. So they have to have their camera running in some other program and then screen share that program into Zoom, which can then have annotations drawn on it by the other person. Which is a ridiculously convoluted way of doing that. And surely there's other programs out there that just let you draw on the other person's camera for them to see. But if there is, I haven't found it yet. That was the only way I could figure out to do it. It worked quite well because my opponent was able to draw lines on the screen and show me where to put the troops and asked me to check the arcs and the ranges to make sure that everything was correct. And occasionally pointing out which unit was which in case some of them blended together a bit at the distance the camera was at. Overall, it was a very positive experience, though the game didn't take much longer than an average game. From start to finish, including deployment, it was less than 2.5 hours, which is pretty good considering it was just me moving everything. And I'm looking to get some more games in like this as well. In fact, if anyone watching this is even interested in playing a game at some point, let me know. It doesn't take that long. I obviously won't be able to do them like multiple times a week, but I should be able to fit some games in here and there. And it'll be handy to get these battle reports back rolling more regularly as well, since people have been starved of this red hot, sizzling, juicy, mouth-watering, spicy, tender content far too long. And overall, I think battle reports are back in business. If anyone else wants to steal my idea for setting up a battle report in the way I just described, allowing your opponent to draw on it, then feel free, because it works if you've got enough armies. Not only have I got Abyssal Dwarves and Undead, also got the Goblins, of course, I've got my Stormcast Ogres, I've got my League of Rordia, which can also be run as part of an Undead army or as Empire of Dust. These Undead can be run as Empire of Dust. I've got a Dwarf Infantry army from back in the Warhammer days with plenty of infantry and war machines. So quite a few options, and hopefully soon I'll start to have a little bit of a Night Stalker army as well. These guys are obviously going to be next on the table. So anyone who's been keeping up with my lockdown hobby time videos, tomorrow that'll be back, now that this is out of the way, and I'm going to be painting Night Stalkers. So making the bases for my 2 custom built Dread Fiends, and also painting my heavily converted Shadow Hulk. If you haven't seen that yet, you should tune in tomorrow. Maybe about the same time this video started, maybe a tiny bit later. So Bart says, looks good is my first criteria for building a list. That's usually mine as well. Especially with the Abyssal Dwarves, that obviously I'm very proud of the way they've come out. So I've put a lot more effort into them than I have with my other armies. If you look at my goblins, for example, it's just base coat, wash, not too much highlighting going on with them. Then there are a zillion of them. Whereas the Abyssal Dwarfs, I've definitely added stages to the various painting steps. So more highlights, more washes, and overall just a better look. And a colour scheme that seems to work, even though I'd had no idea that it was going to work at the time. Gold and orange wouldn't necessarily think would go that great together because they're fairly similar, but with the black in there as well, I think it actually works. So, I'm going to wrap this one up now, and I am going to disappear from the screen. Don't forget, of course, like the video, unless you're some kind of lunatic who doesn't like this kind of spicy content being delivered straight to your eyeballs and various other senses as well via the internet. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already for more this sizzling content coming your way very soon, including more painting, live painting videos up during lockdown. And don't forget to check out all the links in the description as well. There's my Facebook group down there if you want to keep what I'm doing or post anything in there that's relevant to my video output. If anything you're working on that's maybe relevant to the armies that I'm doing, or something you want to post in there that you want to hear me discuss, maybe. And there's also the various fundraising links down there as well, if you want to help fund this kind of juicy content by throwing precious gold coins at me in the form of currency, then feel free. And Steve has got a 1500 point list ready and waiting. Excellent. We'll have to get that game in soon. I need to make a list. I'm going to try and get all my different armies out there on the table over the next few weeks. It's a good opportunity to do so if I'm going to be upping the amount of games I'm having. Quick to set up, so should be able to get some games in with the goblins soon as well. Depending on what my opponents want to play, of course. So all that remains to be said now is, good night out there, whatever you are.